Hey Ratbags, today I'm keeping you up to date with everything with Forever Skies. They've just had a massive AMA, huge amount of questions answered and a glimpse into what to expect from this survival co-op experience, merging kind of Subnautica gameplay with a virus kind of slant where you'll be exploring a post-apocalyptic world with you and up to 4 other players do believe, while you build up your own airship. You'll be exploring the ruined city landscapes as well as going deep below the smog, set hundreds of years after the earth has been contaminated. What has changed? Brand new life, brand new topography, and basically a whole lot of new dangers, including massive kaiju. So yeah, that's the pitch, I guess. We're learning more and more about it, and I'm expecting hopefully a release date announced at some point, maybe over Gamescom. That's my prediction anyway, and it is scheduled to release in 2022. So let's go with everything we've learned so far. I'll leave the link to this VOD on their channel. You go and check it out. Greg, community manager, spoke with Pal and I think Andrea J. Sorry if I murdered that name. And they just gave a bunch of answers. And I'm just going to rattle them off to keep you really time conscious and not waffle on too much. So they're expecting Forever Skies to be a 20-hour story-led kind of game. But remember, it is going to be a sandbox survival game, so you may take much more time and enjoyment out of it than someone who's really just focused about getting to the end. Obviously, with the base building components of your airship and exploring every sort of nook and cranny, then yeah, I'm sure it could take potentially some players a lot longer. They didn't really go into too many details, and obviously it's way too early to really nail it down, but that's what they're kind of expecting, at least a 20-hour runtime. Just like nearly all games on Steam at the moment, a lot of them do run on Steam Deck with varying degrees of success, and that is something they will look at as the future develops of the game. They've previously said they do want it to come to consoles as well, but obviously PC focus at the early stages. They expect to be in early access around 20 months, and they're not going to launch the game with co-op. So that's a big draw of this game, that you'll be able to play with others, take different roles on the ship. You will only have one ship between you, so you won't be able to fly around in your own ships. It's about piloting a ship together and having different types of roles. So they're going to be adding the co-op as they progress, and it will be maybe one of the big major updates that comes early in the game's life, hopefully. There might not be too much story added with the early access launch. It's something they're going to develop and add more of, so I'm fully expecting just lots of locations to explore, gain new technology, and then a few little story beats, but nothing major. Certainly I think it will be like Subnautica, where you won't see the last parts of the story or the major components until well into development. It is going to be a first person game. They've got no ways or ideas about making it anything other than that, although they might have some perspective camera views, maybe for cutscenes or certain aspects of it, but that's the focus. They really want it to take on board how they feel about some of the inspiration. They haven't just looked at Subnautica, they actually looked at their own environment in Poland and about pollution in one of the cities that they were based in and how it's affecting people where you couldn't open your windows and stuff, and that hit them on a deep level, and that's what helped conspire to make Forever Skies. And so they really feel like first person is a key part of that. They do have obviously other references as well, obviously like Subnautica. There will be giant creatures lurking in the green mists, but also the Martian movie as well. When it comes to exploring the biomes, obviously it might seem just one note. You've got the green and then you've got the city landscapes. But the city landscapes will have kind of like micro locations, is what I gathered, where you will be exploring certain laboratories or facilities, and they do have danger of collapsing. That's a big part of the game's premise, that some of it might be unstable, you might only have a limited amount of time, and it's about whether or not you can get the resources from these locations or the vital ingredients before maybe disaster strikes. It is going to be a procedurally generated landscape though, so all these points of interest will be procedurally generated, so no playthrough will really truly maybe be the same. They will have obviously the story beats associated, so I'm expecting them points of interest to be baked in and maybe on like a tile rotation system where you just have certain things that will guide you to that one particular place that's going to be the same for everyone, judging what I'm reading between the lines. But yes, it is going to be a procedurally generated landscape. It has been hundreds of years since the event that forced them to leave the planet basically, and they're only now returning to Earth as a scientist to discover whether or not Earth is ready to return. So there is going to be completely changed topography underneath that green mist. Like I said, there's going to be Kaiju level kind of monsters or leviathans, very much inspired by Subnautica, and you may come across all sorts of little critters as well. Some of these critters could potentially bite you and not just make you bleed, but also give you certain debuffs, so you'd have to find out ways to contain them. They don't want to reveal too much about the viruses, but they did say that maybe one particular virus might make you more susceptible to sun damage. So you'll be moving base parts, dismantle a base part, and because you've got that virus, it may actually cause a lot more damage to you because the sun has been exposed to your skin or your radiation suit and stuff. So that's part of where the viruses are going. Obviously, they're going to be working on tailoring these viruses and making them hopefully into buffs. I reckon there will be some sort of mini game added to it, as you are a scientist and that's your main focus or role. So there will be that element of combining certain things, hopefully, and giving you buffs as well as counteracting against the debuffs. Looking at ways that the extractor, the tool on your arm that you'll be using to gather resources and change your base, could potentially be used as a vague sort of weapon as well against certain critters, maybe to slow them down and stuff. I do think that a lot of the building aspects will keep players a lot engaged, so they expect to have lots of competitions for like the best base design, airship design and stuff like that, and that's a crucial part of the game, being able to add different modules, place different walls on your airship and really customise it to your own style. They do intend to have maybe mod support for the game, but it's not going to be a primary focus. It will be at some point down the road. Or certainly they spoke in the AMA about user generated content. At the moment the focus will be on that sandbox and then story, and yes, there will be maybe other ways they can add more to it, like a new game plus and stuff, but it is a sandbox game first and that's what they're going to focus on. You will be able to carry on playing the game after you've resolved the story, so it won't be a case of just finishing the story up and then that's it, game over. So far I've got no real concrete plans about any betas or any kind of streamer kind of windows. It feels like they're still actually working on a vertical slice, which is a little bit surprising the way they worded that there. I would have expected, with so much they've shown off and the kind of amount of developers they've got on it, that they'd have a much more functional working demo. Maybe they do, maybe the vertical slice is just how they're wording it for the demo. They really want it to be polished, because even demos need to be in a good state nowadays. And I expect in terms of updates to have smaller, bigger, they're still a bit undecided, but that's what they would like. Smaller updates adding little bits of content and fixes, but also maybe larger content drops as well. So yeah, I really like the look of this one. Yes, it's got massive comparisons to Subnautica, but I think there's some big differences here. I like the slant where it's taking a look at the overworld and not just under obviously the water or anything like that. And yeah, the idea that you're coming up against Leviathans underneath or even more creatures, getting rare resources, but then also having to deal with the ruins of these cities above, that is pretty unique. As I said, there are no real concrete plans about a release date yet. They was pretty hesitant not to even give a glimpse or a kind of hint. I am just saying it, I think that maybe Gamescom would be probably the best time for it, but you never know, it may still be a way away, maybe towards the very end of 2022 before we even get an announcement and then subsequent early access release. Not sure they've announced anything to do with the price as well, but I would imagine it'll be the stock standard $20 to $30 kind of price point for early access. That's what a lot of survival games will be or have been in the past. So there we go, let me know what you think about the game. As I said, I've done a bunch of videos on this now already, and news had kind of not dried up, but there had been a little bit of a lull in between getting some big chunky stuff, but that was great to hear. A huge amount of answers in there, and like I said, I'm hopeful maybe we'll get some new stuff coming soon. But great stuff keeping us going, and yeah, I can't wait for this one to come out. As soon as it does, I'll let you guys know all about it, and of course I'll be covering gameplay guides and more when it does. Until next time, Ratbags, as always, the home of survival news, games and guides. Laters.